You're listening to the Bible Uncut and Unfiltered. We believe the Bible doesn't need to be watered down or cleaned up to be understood. Our goal is to provide a healing place to discuss the questions you can't ask and the context you won't learn in church. I'm your host, Colin Connor. Now, on to the episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to our Sacred Appetites series here on food and faith and the intersection of all of that. Last week, you just had me, but this week we are starting off going through some interviews with some new guests to the podcast. And this week we have a very special one that we want to start off the main body of the series with. And I have to give you a little bit of background on why she is here. So, if you've listened for a little while, you know back in 2024, I was at Theology Beer Camp in Denver, Colorado. It was the first time I was there. And one of my favorite sessions was actually the very first one I sat in on. It was talking about so much, but it was really focused on food and embodiment and fermentation, and it went all over the place. It had Paul and Billy Horde that we've had here on the podcast, and another highlighted speaker we had was Asia Dorsey. She is a Colorado native, I think Denver actually native as well. And she came in talking a little bit about her business, some of like kombucha she had dealt with before, just food, herbalism. It really covered so much stuff. And I was fascinated. I really enjoyed the information she brought in. And so when I knew we were doing this food series, I said, we got to get Asia on. I think she's going to have a lot to bring to this conversation. So Asia is an herbalist. She is a podcaster. I recently saw her described as a practitioner of attention to bodies, land, and food, which I thought was awesome. So we have her here today. And Asia, I just want to say welcome to the podcast. So glad you're here with us.
Oh, it is so wonderful to be here. And yes, that was such an amazing time in 2024, bridging fermentation and culture. And oh, it's so good to reconnect with you.
Likewise, I want to start off by talking about your main work right now, which you have this Bones, Bugs, and Botany. Great name, love the alliteration. Can you walk us through a little bit though? What do those words mean to you, and how have they come to shape the path that you are on now?
Yes. So, Bones, Bugs, and Botany is my school where I offer
Mm,
courses and mentorship and one on one consultation. And it's my healing journey. Um,
mm,
Started off, I had clinical depression. And after traveling around the world, apprenticing in permaculture and agriculture, learning about food, I was introduced to a protocol that centered meaty bones.
mm,
And so at the beginning of the work, it was bones that really helped to heal the lining of my gut. And then it was
mm.
fermentation, which is bugs. The bugs are probiotics.
Yeah.
After I healed my depression with food and graduated from university, I returned to Colorado where I started a fermented food company called the Five
Mm,
Points Fermentation Company.
yeah.
And I made the most delicious, local, organic, probiotic foods and brews. And I got those to the people because I learned the embodied significance of how our gut is and how our mind works. And then botany is the last part of the healing journey. I started my food business, was beautiful, straight out of college, had no idea what I was doing, but I knew how to cook, how to ferment, and I knew how to make
Yeah.
food that healed, but it kind of scared me a little bit because I was making these wonderful beverages from a culture called Jun, which eats green
Mm,
tea and honey. And I was getting
mm,
all these local fresh herbs and I was all about flavor, but people's bodies started to heal. So I began a journey of learning about the plants that I was using in my brews. And that led to a long time apprenticeship in herbalism, organizations like the Ancestral Herbalism Healing Collective, And of course, like apprenticeship, travel, study around the world to become a really world renowned herbalist. And so, bones, bugs, and botany describe sort of my healing journey.
I love that. You talked a lot about fermentation in there,
Mm,
which is something that a lot of people run into every day, whether that's beer or kimchi or sourdough bread or whatever, but it can scare people. It's not just a normal cooking. There's a little more to it. So, can you explain a little bit of what's special about that fermentation process and maybe why we shouldn't be scared of it, but actually find it as life-giving?
yeah. So there is spoilage,
Hmm,
right? Which is unintentional.
mhm,
And then there is a controlled process of decomposition and transformation. That
mm,
is fermentation. And so with fermentation, we are using probiotic, which is pro-life
mm,
organisms that are literally on our hands, on our faces, on our bodies. They're already always present in our environment, and we are creating the conditions with salt and with other cultures that those microbes need to flourish and to transform our food into something that is better than the sum of its parts. And so
mm,
fermentation, even though it seems scary and strange today, it's actually the basis of all of our cuisine. There was no
mm.
such thing as bread without fermenting it, without leavening it,
Yeah,
because
true.
bread that has been unleavened is poisonous, right?
Mm,
That's behind sort of the genocidal act of the Egyptians against the Jews, was forcing them to eat
mm,
bread.
mm.
Fermentation does a few things for food, but since we're talking about bread, I'll get specific.
Yeah.
Fermentation, all grains have what's called anti-nutritional factors like lectins, phytic acids, tannins, all kinds of other things. And those stop your body's ability to absorb the nutrition, whether that's binding to the minerals or bursting holes in your gut, right? It's
Mm,
really, really bad. So our ancestors developed the practice of fermenting the bread, right?
mm,
Not only did fermenting the bread leaven it to give it rise, but it also helped to counter these anti nutritional factors and unlock the minerals and B vitamins that existed in the greens. So,
mm.
fermentation, all of your condiments, for example, were traditionally fermented. Ketchup, hot sauce, all of it was
Really?
mustard.
Okay.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah. And of course, fermented vegetables are actually
Yeah.
more food safe than unfermented vegetables because lactic acid is the
Mm,
great ally of our bodies. So it's
mm.
important for us to understand that what has happened over time is that the process of fermentation, because it does take time, has been removed by industrialization, causing our food to
Ah,
be a lot more toxic and a lot
'cause we
less
just want a
nourishing.
fast result, right?
That's right. They cut the important
Ah,
step, which is what made the
mm,
food really healing and really wholesome. A lot of people experience gluten intolerance now. And it's not because there's something wrong with their bodies, it's because there's something wrong with the bread, right?
hmm,
What's fascinating about modern wheat and what's really important to conceptualize is that not only is it improperly processed, but it's also sprayed with glyphosate, which
hmm.
really destroys life. And so people are thinking that they're responding to the wheat, but they're responding to the glyphosate. When they go and they eat grains
Interesting.
of Europe, they often aren't getting sick, and that's because those grains aren't sprayed. But
Hmm.
what's powerful about fermentation is we find that lactic acid and the lactic acid producing microorganisms can actually digest the glyphosate that's on the wheat,
Hmm.
right? Making it a lot less toxic to our bodies. And so, this idea of leaning on our ancestral technologies and that our ancestors were wise, even if they made some
Mm.
bad decisions, The decisions
Sure.
that they were correct about was the food, or we would not be here. So they had to be correct about the food. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so my work in the world is to actually help people to understand why their ancestors are worth it, are worth their
Hmm.
time, and to have them appreciate the people who came before us so that we are not navigating the world based on fads and trends and diets and all kind of crazy stuff. I want us to be able to navigate the world with the wisdom that comes from our bodies and our ancestors.
Ooh, I'd love for you to go into that some more because I'm a millennial, so we got the Instagram culture, we
We
got the
do.
fads, we got all that stuff. But
Yeah.
how did you get into this with like finding wisdom more so in previous traditions rather than going with whatever's in the culture right now?
Yeah. I think it came from getting sick.
Oh.
I got sick and I realized that the solutions that hospitals and therapists and things like that, all of the traditional things, the solutions weren't working.
Mm.
And so one of the things that I did, I studied environment and sociology in university, and I was just so sad about the state of the world, and no one was offering
Mm.
me actual solutions, right? Everyone's telling me about climate policies and on and on, all this stuff. But no
Right.
one's telling me how to fix it or how to heal it or what we're supposed to do about it.
Mm.
So I'm reading this book called The Omnivore's Dilemma by
Oh
Michael
yeah, I've heard of
Pollan.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And he talks about Polyface Farm. And I'm like, oh, treating a pig like a pig is sustainable. So I was
Yeah.
introduced to
What's
this.
that? Just for clarification.
Yeah. So Polyface Farm is a farm based on what's called permaculture.
Mm.
Permaculture is a movement based off of honoring indigenous and traditional wisdom to help design regenerative ways of living and being in the world. So I teach the permaculture design course, which is regenerative design. I teach that here in Denver, but I studied regenerative design in Australia and New Zealand.
Oh.
And so, yeah, so these are really the patterns that we have been able to discern from multiple ancestors. And we apply those patterns to design food forests, to design landscapes that are able to capture water. All of the solutions to the problems that we have already exist.
Mm.
And as a medicine woman, I've taken that same ethic and said, all of the things that our bodies need to be healthy already exist. And I've made it my mission to discover it, right?
Mm.
And not just discover it from my own blood ancestors, but all of the ancestors. Like I stand really firmly that all of our ancestors on all of the continents are wise,
Mm.
irrespective of what we're taught to believe about superiority or inferiority, advanced or developing, or all of that is
Yeah.
nonsense, right?
Mm.
So I take it to really listen to our people, to our ancestors, to our grandmothers, and
Mm.
apply that to living bodies today.
I love that. I'm actually just starting to reconnect with a little bit of food from my heritage.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very mixed. I have a lot of Irish on my dad's side,
Yes.
but I got this like Eastern European Lithuanian thing going on my mom's
Ooh.
side. And I never liked the cuisine of that, as a teenager, but now I'm starting to get into, the pierogies and yeah, and the kielbasi and everything. I live a little east of Philly, and we've got some good Polish delis out that way. Went to this fantastic restaurant not that long ago. I think it's for my mom's birthday, where it was somebody whose parents came over from Poland and they made this whole restaurant with all the ingredients. I'm finding that I actually like that stuff that I never thought I liked before. And listening to you, I'm hearing some of the connection just going back through the family line that like,
Yes.
oh, maybe this is how we were supposed to eat, you know?
Honey, Don't get me started on the poles and pork, okay? Don't get
Oh,
me
I wanna get you
started,
started. Go ahead, please.
okay? So when I was running my fermented food business, because I did everything traditional. So I did traditional German style, had my pounder, had all, all the things. And the pierogies guys were like, "Oh my God, it's like old home." Like they would only use my kraut because they're like, "It tastes just like grandma's."
Yeah, yeah.
Right? The rest of the kraut in the store was being made in 5 days. My sauerkraut was like 20 days, right?
Oh,
Like
wow. Hmm,
hyper low. I was just doing everything to honor the land. And the pierogies,
mm,
they could taste it. They know what kraut's supposed
yeah,
to taste like.
yeah.
So what's really important is that the combination of pork and kraut is sacred. So pork is
Mm,
the only meat that I know of that has to be processed in order for it to be supportive of health. And
mm,
so we see pork processing all around the world, and it has the same pattern language: fermentation, sour, right?
mm,
Pineapple. So
mm.
applying acids. So traditionally, the Poles, as well as some of the Germanic folk, they would actually brine their pork in the juice of sauerkraut, right? And that lactic
Yeah.
acid inhibits putrefying microorganisms, but it also transforms the quality of the meat such that it doesn't cause the blood to coagulate.
Huh.
And so your pork must be cured. You have to ferment pork in order for it to be healthy. Like bacon makes sense, okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and it's just because the combination of the sour plus the pork makes the pork so much more edible. So you do need the
Mm,
sauerkraut with the pierogies, okay?
yeah. Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
it's a sacred combination, and that's what they're doing, in Europe where cabbages are from.
Mm,
But, in the Pacific Islands, right? Like we're using pineapple, right? And
mhm.
pineapple is rich in bromelain, which helps to sort of digest it. So that's why you're always seeing like the Hawaiian pizza is like pineapple and pork, or
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah, like carnitas is usually gonna have like the pulled pork with the pineapple, or
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
holiday ham, right? Is gonna be the
Oh,
ham.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we could see this pattern playing
Mm,
out across all of our ancestors so that we know to eat
mm.
sour, like to eat our pork either soured or fermented, or eat it with something that is sour and fermented.
Oh, so cool. And since you're talking here about that sacred connection between them, I wanted to mention when you were at the beer camp, I
Yeah.
remember you telling a story about sugarcane. I don't know that I remember all the details, but it was something about you saw people just like drinking almost like a sugar water. And
Yeah.
you were talking about how plants can be far more healthier when they are connected to the whole plant instead of
Yes.
being stripped down and refined like we do today. So can you
Mhm.
maybe tell a little bit of that story and what that can teach us about food and even ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So sugar cane is actually indigenous to the Pacific Islands. And
Hmm.
those Pacific Islanders ended up bringing sugar to India, where it first experienced the refining process. So we had jaggery, which is very similar to panela and rapadura, and it's a whole pure cane experience. Jaggery is so nice. But then there was another layer of refinement, right? Which was to separate the white from the black. Right. This is
Mm.
the move, right? We're
Mm.
entering into a dualistic way of being and moving in a whole political economic system called colonization, right? Anyways, come to find out, what's really important to understand is that that highly refined white crystalline structure is devastating to the human body.
Mm.
Now, our ancestors have figured out a lot of ways to make sugar less devastating. One of my favorite shows is The Great British Bake Show.
Oh, sure.
We love
Yeah, yeah, the
home
Bake
food.
Off, yeah.
Yeah, the Bake Off. So there's a lot we can look into European like bread culture to really discern some of the patterns of how we deal with sugar. And because of industrialization, a lot of those practices have been ignored and forgotten. So what's happening, of course, is that we're experiencing these crazy spikes in our blood sugar because our food no longer has fiber, no longer has fat, no longer has
Mm,
adequate spices, and it's causing us to have metabolic disorders, glycation, all kinds of things that really hurt not only our physical bodies, but that hurt our mind, right? People whose blood sugar is constantly spiking are more prone to angry outbursts, right? So
mm.
you end up coming up with a society that starts feeling a lot less safe because the blood sugar is dysregulated. The
Our bodies
ramification,
are connected to our minds and our emotions and
yeah.
everything, right? Yeah.
And then that's connected to our culture, right?
Yeah.
That's connected to our culture. So then we start having this anxious, uncomfortable, inflamed culture, right?
Mm,
All this happens when we separate sugar from its whole source, which is sugar cane, right? Sugar
okay.
cane is replete with vitamin C. It's also replete with minerals like magnesium, which help to support our blood sugar regulation. Vitamin C helps to combat the advanced glycation end products, and it's an anti inflammatory, right?
Mm,
So the whole plant is actually, interestingly enough, a remedy for the disorder and the that's caused by separating the plant,
mm,
right? There's this beautiful, we're talking about sort of the Bible, we're talking about religion and food.
yeah.
If you believe that God is good,
Hmm,
then you can believe that God made the world good, that God didn't make mistakes when God was making food. When God was
mm.
making plants and animals, he, they, she, we made it fucking perfect. It's already whole, complete, and perfect. It doesn't
Mm,
need more intervention. We are perfect. Everything is created, right, in the image of God. And so the closer we get to the whole plant or the whole food, the closer we are to that innate perfection. The more that we break it apart and try all this intervention, right? The less perfect it becomes. This is
mm,
one of the reasons why pharmaceutical medicine, we are so grateful, but also those things are so dangerous,
mm,
right? It's because they've been separated from their wholeness and now they are poisons that
mm,
need to be distributed by professionals who are trained in handling poisons.
mm.
But herbalism is a people's medicine, right? Herbalism is something that can be practiced by elders, children, pregnant folks, whatever. Anybody can be an herbalist. Your dog is already an herbalist.
Yeah.
and, and part of that is because herbs are very simple, very safe, and very effective. So, working with food and understanding about perfection, we can begin to understand that grandma and whoever is holding the food culture in the family, whether that's the uncle or the auntie, who cares? What we can understand is that those people who hold the knowledge of food also hold the knowledge of medicine, right?
Mm,
Because everything is medicinal,
mm.
because creator made it that way, right? Why
Yeah.
wouldn't it be if God is good, right? So so yeah, I am just so enlivened by the beauty of the planet that we live on and how sacred that beauty is, and when it comes to food and understanding like the patterns, right? We're going to stay close to the whole form, and then we're going to listen to what the ancestors had to say about working with the whole form.
Mm,
So if I'm eating, for example, whole grain einkorn bread, which I do, I have it in my
Mhm.
kitchen. I'm gonna ferment it
Mm.
because it's gonna have all the good things, but it's also gonna have some crazy stuff too. So we gotta get rid of the crazy, and the ancestors taught us how to eat bread. We don't have
Yeah.
to reinvent any wheels. We don't need no new this, that from this country. We don't need nothing new. We just need to remember the ancestors and keep the food wholesome. That's it.
Mm. Alright, yeah. I want to pause for a second here because I like what you're saying, and I can't help but think, though, that some of the people listening might feel a little uncomfortable at times
Oh, okay,
because
yes,
yeah,
please,
yeah, because I
please,
know, like,
yes.
how I grew up, and I'm weird, so I try not to have myself as the standard, but, I grew up in these independent fundamental Baptist circles where we were almost anti-science in a way, but just because it went against our idea of, 6,000-year-old Earth and creationism, all that. And I hear in what you're saying a desire to get back to wisdom that we have missed, but you also you I've noticed you don't reject everything about modernity.
No.
And I think too many people when they hear at least in the circles I grew up, it was very easy to go into like MLMs, essential oils. Like when they hear natural talk, they start to go down this rabbit hole that I don't think is what you're talking about. So what is the difference here in where you're talking versus some of these other rabbit holes people can go down?
Yeah. Ooh, what a beautiful observation, and you really described that eloquently, and I just wanna
Mm,
honor the complexity of sort of this question and how you shared it.
mm.
A, thank you for noticing my non-dualism, right?
No, I love that about you. I really do. I think that's so awesome.
Yeah, it's the ability to hold multiple truths all at the same time,
Yeah.
right? In the same way that God is able to hold all of us,
Mm,
right? God is able to hold the dog, the tree, the
mm,
person, the monkey, the microbe, all at the same time and respond to each of them and have each of them matter.
mm,
God didn't say only only, these people matter, and no, God's able to hold us all. And so I imagine that we too should be able to hold multiple things, and none of them have to be
mhm,
wrong. None of them
mm,
actually have to be bad in order for us to be right. We don't have to be right about it, right? We
okay.
just have to be as righteous as possible. We have to try our best to discern, right? And when it comes to discernment, this is the one thing that most people are not taught that I'm really
Mm,
grateful to have. So when it comes to my relationship with the earth, it's not mediated through exploitation. So the reason
yes.
why
Yeah.
we don't do MLMs in my herbal
Mhm,
school, we don't use essential oils at all
mm,
because these things are highly extractive and the energy is the same
mhm,
as the highly processed food. You're moving from processed food to processed plants. It's the same frequency. You're still going to hurt the earth. So without
okay.
being grounded in values, which is regeneration, I want the earth to be better because I lived here. It's my medicine way is grounded in sort of the beloved future, the beloved community that I want to create. I want to
Mm,
create a beloved future where medical doctors and herbalists and pregnant women and families are able to be in a dialogue that doesn't make any of the people feel like an idiot because everyone has something to contribute,
oh, I
right?
love
Yeah, I want to be in a community like that that recognizes the value that each individual part brings. I am an herbalist. I will never wield a surgical
mm,
blade, nor do I want to, right?
yeah.
Imma send you to the doctor. That's what they're
Mhm,
good at. But your doctor shouldn't tell you what to eat. They don't
mm,
have training in nutrition. They don't
Mm,
have the worldview to make sure that what they're telling you is in alignment with your culture and your ancestors, right? You're gonna go, right, to the nutritional therapist for that. So it's like
mm,
understanding that all foods, all medicine, all people, all opinions, all religions have things that they're really, really good at. And they also have blind spots. Like for us to evolve as humans, we actually have to sit with something that has a flaw and be okay with it. Just like you have to
mm.
sit with your cousin, your uncle, your daddy, your dog, and be with it as it is, right?
Yes.
Flaws and all. But
Mm.
don't lend him no money
You're right, right.
because he has that flaw, right? So it's this is what we're doing with all of creation really is
Mm.
seeing the medicine in it and also seeing the poison in it.
Is that non-dualism natural to you, or have you had to learn that? Because the fundamentalism I had makes that a real struggle for me, but I love this approach. So,
Yeah.
is how have you
Well
learned that?
fundamentalism is fundamentally dual,
Yes, it is.
right? It's all about good, bad, right, wrong. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not knocking it. Sometimes you gotta take a stand. Sometimes you go like, "No," and I'm standing over here about it, and
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay. Non-dualism can actually be found I have experienced it actually exists in all the major religions. If you're looking at Islam, you might reference the Sufis who had a non-dual kind of position. For me, I was introduced to non-dualism by my grandmother, Betty Jo,
Ooh,
shout out,
yeah.
via anime. Like my grandma helped me to fall in love with a director named Hayao Miyazaki.
Mm,
And she would have me watch this show called Princess Mononoke.
okay.
And it blew my mind that one of the characters, Madame Eboshi, she was a feminist, she was helping the prostitutes, and yet she was destroying the forest. And I was like, "But she's not bad, but she's not good." But
Mm,
engaging with the works of Hayao Miyazaki at a young age versus Disney, which is very
mm,
dualistic. There's always like a bad guy, and the bad guy is the dark one, right?
yes, yeah.
But engaging with Hayao Miyazaki actually introduced me to Shintoism, introduced me to some of the non-dualist traditions that are coming from Asia.
Mm,
Now I stay close to the Tao, and I'm very much influenced by Taoist philosophy in my work as a medicine woman. But it really started with Hayao Miyazaki, and as a kid, having to sit with these characters who were neither good nor bad, or were good but did bad things, or were bad but did good
mhm,
things. That was so complex for me as a kid, but I
yeah,
really held that complexity moving through life. But yeah, so even within Christianity, fundamentalism is, a part of the whole of Christianity. But when we look at some of the other sort of denominations, you start to branch towards more non dualistic philosophies. And in India, we would say the non dual tradition is Tantra, right? So you can find it. And it's often very beautiful. It's often hidden, right? The non dualism is often hidden because duality helps to control people, right?
yeah,
Duality is really great for control because you get to people are going to say yes or no versus non-duality, which is actually a way of thinking such that people make good decisions, right? It's a methodology, it's a decision making method
mm,
versus a I'm not going to tell you what's the truth, but I'm going to tell you how to get to the truth. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yes, yeah. That
Yeah,
that
and
that I
no
think even
offense.
fits. No, no, that fits what we're trying to do with the podcast here because growing up, I was told this is what you believe, this is what's right. And we'll often say I had two rules. You don't have to agree with me, and if you don't, let's talk about why. You know?
Yes. Those are such good
Uh,
rules.
yeah, it gets you more into understanding the why behind it and the different options instead of just this, you have to believe exactly like me.
Yeah, yeah. I
Mm,
mean, the non-duality also has showed up in my politics as
mm,
well. I used to have these really great conservative friends,
mm,
and we would totally different political spectrums, right? But we would go out and we would really tussle with political issues, but
mm,
stay respectful and end up
mm.
both changed in the process, right? Like, it's like,
That's so
I
rare.
understand. Yeah, like, it's I have learned to listen to folks who you don't think, I live in Colorado, so there's a lot of ranchers, right? There's a
Mhm.
lot of conservatives, but I'm a foodie. I love food. So I love ranchers because they ranch my meat. So
Yeah.
I can always find something to talk about with them. We may not agree on this, that, whatever, but we agree on grass fed meat.
Mhm.
And so that's how we build relationships. So the non duality kind of thing, that this approach, it's not like the popular non binary. That's not the same as non duality, right?
Yeah.
Non duality is way broader and way more expansive and useful than sort of any kind of political construct that tells you what you should or should not be. Because non
Mm.
duality is a way of thinking, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Well said.
yeah. But yeah, this is what's useful for us as we're bridging these gaps between our modern life and our ancestors, people
Mm,
who have different political or spiritual opinions. If we can hold that each person has something sacred, that like God didn't make them by accident. And so, what is the gift that they are to the world? If we
mm,
can hold that each person and each plant and each tree and each mountain and each river, each raindrop, right, is a gift, and that it is our pleasure to discern what that gift is. If we can
mm,
be that way, I think that we can cause a lot of healing in the world.
mm. Beautifully said. You keep bringing up ancestors here, and I have noticed you mention a lot about bioregionality and eating based on what is available in your area.
Mhm.
In the world we live in today, you can get pretty much anything from anywhere at any time.
Mm.
And that seems like a good thing in a lot of ways it can be. I can get spices that I couldn't have gotten before or something, but what do we lose when we are connected from place and history and what can we gain as we relearn those things?
Ooh, what do we lose
Hmm.
when we're connected from place and history? Oh, love it. Oh, beautiful question. That was poetry. Anyways, what do we lose? We lose our center.
Hmm.
We lose the genius that the earth is offering us, and we lose ourselves in
Hmm.
consumerism and commercialism. Because these things are not of our tradition, we actually don't know what to do with them. And then we have to rely on some influencer, some like restaurant. We read it in a book, some doctor talked about it. It's just all these people like, oh, everyone's like the Mediterranean diet.
Yes,
And
yeah,
I'm like,
absolutely. I've heard about that a lot.
that's cute, but we're not I'm in Colorado. This is not the Mediterranean. Hello, we have winter. What are you talking about? Like, cut it
Yeah.
out. Of course, the Mediterranean diet is better than a diet that's based on processed food, but any diet that's not processed food based is better. So what do we what we lose is our context, we lose our relationships, but we also lose logic. Like, things just stop making sense when we when we're doing all of this crazy stuff. What's fascinating about the body is that even though all humans have basically the same genes,
Mhm.
basically, how those genes are expressed is it's highly, highly dependent on not only the journey of our ancestors before us, but also the places that they've been,
Mhm.
right? And those patterns, those epigenetic expressions, some of them are generation to generation, but other parts of those expressions take hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. One
Mm.
example is the MTHFR gene mutation that's common amongst Northern Europeans. This
Okay.
gene mutation makes it difficult for them to methylate B vitamins from plants.
Mm.
Now, what's interesting is that, and the reason for this is these folks lived in a region where, for long parts of the year, AKA winter, there weren't plants. There weren't green, fresh plants. So their
Sure.
bodies actually adapted to getting B vitamins from animals, which are rich in B vitamins, but also fermented grains like beer, right? You
Mm.
said your folks were Irish. Well, some of my
Mhm.
Scottish ancestors, you go over there, they have this saying, it's like, you get the they'll say you get the vitamins from the beer and the fun from the scotch, right? Something like that. Some Scottish person's gonna yell at me. I'm so sorry if I mess that up. But I
I mean,
wanna
it
give you
still
that.
fits the culture one way or the
Right.
other.
Don't come for me. I love y'all.
Mm.
But the idea is that beer, being rich in Saccharomyces cerevisiae and other yeast producing microbes, were a potent source of B vitamins for Northern Europeans, right? This is why beer culture is so significant. It's because this MTHFR gene mutation. Meanwhile, folks from the equator, like me,
Mm.
we have an enhanced capacity to extract B vitamins from food, but also to convert plant based nutrients into the usable forms, especially like vitamin A. Now,
Mm.
why would we have that? Because in the tropics, there's two seasons. Green and green, okay? So we had to
Yes.
get used to using a lot of plant matter, right? And so our bodies are really good at converting it. So now we're in 2026, we're all mixed, right? We all have various genetics, but we are all having to figure out like how to eat in a way that both fits our body, fits our flavor profile, fits our ancestors, and fits the land, right?
Mm.
So, in my course, my mentorship, Food Genius, we have a framework that really helps people to triangulate, you know, what's available in their bioregion, what
Mhm.
their bio individuality requires, and then what they enjoy, right?
Mm.
It's a really fascinating thing where we're being hit with all of this plant-based, plant-based, plant-based. Plant-based makes sense if you're in Florida. It makes sense if you're
Sure.
at the equator. But
Mm.
if you're high, dry altitude Colorado, if you're Tibet, honey, the amount of mineral deficiencies, anemia, all kind of things I see in my
Mm.
practice from people eating a plant-based diet in Colorado, honey, it's dumb. And you're European, you're adapted to meat. That makes no sense.
Huh.
It makes
Yeah.
no sense. It's just
Mm.
incompatible. And so then the body sickens. And then I have to, heal the body back up.
Mm.
So without understanding this interplay of what your environment is asking of you, what your body is asking of you, what your ancestors are asking of you, without understanding that, you're kind of at the whim of the most catchy capitalist who's gonna try to
Mm.
sell you this diet, this fad, this
Yep.
superfood, this. They're trying to sell you, and you're gonna get sold because you don't know who you are. You're not grounded in place, and so you're
Mm.
just easily manipulated. And that's honestly what they want. They don't want you to know who you are. They don't want you to know your ancestors, and they don't want you to feel yes and no in your body, right? Because then they can't sell you all this new stuff.
Girl preaching a better sermon than I heard in a long time over here. I love this.
Listen, we don't want you to be broke. We want you to be happy, healthy, wealthy.
Yeah.
But you're gonna get broke trying to chase after these diets that don't work for you.
No, that's not the truth. I want to talk about bugs here for a minute. I want to turn the conversation a little bit because when I was in Colorado, I had already been thinking a little bit about gut health.
Yeah.
Just a little bit personally here. I don't think I've mentioned this on the podcast. And if anyone listening, this is too much for you, I'm sorry. But in my family, there is a lot of stomach issues, a lot of IBS.
Mm.
And I had found that kombucha could help with that sometimes. And I actually, shortly after being out there in Colorado, started brewing my own kombucha.
Oh.
I have loved it. It was a Christmas gift from my parents, got the little starter kit and everything. It's been
Mhm.
super cool. I've really enjoyed it. Shortly after, my wife started making her own sourdough bread. So we're kind of becoming a little bit of a fermenting family over here. Uh,
Yes.
but but yeah, so bugs. This is something I don't think a lot of people get into, and I
Mm.
don't even think I would have if I didn't have some of the stomach issues I do. So for any listeners that haven't really thought about this aspect, what does the bug side, the microbiome, how does that teach us about interconnectedness with land, food, history, each other? I just want to set you loose on that question and go wherever you want to.
Yes, I mean, I don't make a distinction between microbes and spirituality. I
Ooh,
think
okay,
that
yeah,
microorganisms are the expression of God.
okay.
Every single person, every single plant, well, animals are people too,
Mm,
rocks, environments, they all have a microbial footprint or fingerprint.
mm,
Right? Every single thing has its own communities of microorganisms that just flock to it, right? Like it's wild that the same microbes are going to be on similar vegetables, even if those vegetables are grown in completely different places. It's like the microbes are called right to the frequency and we can get a little esoteric. I'm not going to get too esoteric, right? Not going to get too esoteric, but what I wanna
just a little bit,
say,
not too much, just a little.
not too much, but everything around us is governed by a discrete community of beings who are tiny, but who matter,
Mm,
right?
yes.
These little beings matter. And depending on our habits, depending on our patterns, our way of being, we're gonna cultivate different communities of microbes. The goal is that we are cultivating resonant, synchronous microorganisms, microbial communities that are full of beings who want to do us good and exclude
Mm,
the beings that want to do us harm.
mm,
And so when you're making your sourdough, right? When your wife is making her sourdough for your family, right?
mm,
The act of her touching sort of that wheat and that water, she is imbuing it with the microbes that are on her skin. And
yeah.
those microbes are engaging with the culture, right? And those microbes are specifically producing nutrients that is relevant to what she needs,
Mm,
right? That's one of the things that most people don't understand about why it's important to ferment your own food at home versus just buying fermented food out, is that
mm,
the microbes are reading you and then feeding you. One of
oh, yeah.
my favorite examples of this, I teach a course called Sacred Sugar,
Mm,
and
mm,
we're working with water kefir.
okay.
And so I share with everyone my sacred cultures that I've been cultivating. I have like half gallon, 4 half-gallon jars of grains, right, Kirsten?
Love
And so it's the same grains. My water kefir tastes the same. It's just my kefir taste, and it tastes delicious, by the way.
it.
But so I give these grains to different people who come to the workshop, and then they ferment it at home. And then eventually we bring the fermented beverages back together. And we can taste that each one is different because
Mm.
they have adapted to the person who was brewing it and the household. But
Oh,
importantly, they have adapted to what that person needs. So I had a friend who was having a skin kind of disorder. You know, it happens like in the crevice. I
yeah.
forget, eczema.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So when I went to her house, the kefir grains had actually turned into a SCOBY and they were brewing the most sour beverage I've ever had. I was like, this is shocking because mine never gets sour like that.
Uh,
Turns out she had low stomach acid.
oh,
And the low stomach acid was presenting as skin dysregulation. And so her grains were highly acidic to support the acidity of her stomach.
wow.
So the microbes are a means through which God is listening, through which the food is
Mm.
listening. This is, we pray while we're cooking, we pray over our food. You can imagine that, like, the food is covered in microbes who are
Yeah,
receiving
it
those.
is, yeah.
It is. They're receiving those prayers and they're responding, right?
Mm,
So, you know, for me, understanding this world of microbes, it helps us to understand a lot of our rituals at church, right? The reason why sort of the stained glass, you know, has all of that gold. Apparently, what I learned is that when the sun hits the gold, it actually ionizes the air, dissuading certain microorganisms and promoting others.
um,
Things like holy water, right? And
mm,
washing and cleansing, things like the burning of incense, right? A lot of
mm.
people are saging their homes, come to find out that sage is antibacterial. A lot of what we're doing in our spiritual practice is actually either cultivating beneficial microorganisms or excluding the ones that we don't like.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, so this work with microorganisms is just our work with all of creation, right? When you're
Mm,
singing to plants, yeah, you're singing to the plant, but you're also singing to all the microorganisms on that plant, right?
mm,
And they are responding because song, right, is vibration, it's energy, it's food, right?
mm.
Right. So I think it's very, you know, I got a little esoteric. I'm sorry, soup.
Oh,
But
okay. Well, I want to one up you on your esoteric here, and I want your thoughts.
yeah, yeah,
Because
please.
as I'm digging into more of this microscopic world around us, I keep coming back to this idea in the epistles of the Bible of Christ in you,
Mm,
and I think of a historical Jesus walking around the Middle East 2,000 years ago. Skin cells fall off of his body. He
mhm,
eats, he goes to the bathroom. He has all of these things that are interacting with the environment around him, and there could literally be 2,000 years later little microscopic pieces that were connected to Jesus.
mm.
Is
Yeah,
there some connection we can have then of even like as we take communion or something like that, like a literal, even physical, microscopic connection to the divine and to other people around us?
absolutely. So imagine it like this. Someone goes and they touch Christ, right? And then they go and they ferment their sourdough bread. And then they pass down that culture for 2,000 years,
It has a
right?
little bit of him in there.
And it has a little bit of him in there. You see?
Wow.
There's a little bit of us in everything. Right?
Wow.
And there's a little
Yeah.
bit of him in everything. And thinking about how, you know, enslaved Africans took seeds in their hair, but no one talks about the way that Eastern European women would sew their sourdough cultures into their hemline.
Whoa, okay.
Making sure that they're taking their culture from home into the new world. Who's to say that the sourdough bread made with the Christ sweat, you know, wasn't similarly
Yes.
passed down for 2,000 years? We can't say that it wasn't,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We can't say that it was. But what we can say is that the nature of microorganisms is such that not only do they get passed down, but they also intersect with each other and become new things.
Mm,
Microbes participate in what's called horizontal gene transfer, which means that your microbes and your wife's microbes actually begin to cross and become similar so that you have a family set of microbes.
mm,
Right. And when you and your family go out into the world, right, you're sharing your family set with microbes, and then those are creating family with the microbes that are around them. This is
mm,
why it is so fundamentally absurd to patent microbial life
mm.
because of
Yeah,
how
yeah,
easily it becomes something else. This is why we don't patent life at all, is because it so easily becomes something else and no one gets to own the byproduct of that mixture, right? No one gets to own the children of those microbes.
yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, thinking about what it means to sort of imbibe bread, the Eucharist, that's honestly one of my favorite Christian rituals
Yeah.
because so delicious. Um, but it's what's interesting is that both the bread and the wine are both fermented products,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Both of those are byproducts of fermentation. And so, what if the aspect of Christ isn't necessarily the specific microbes, but the process of transformation that fermentation is? And what if
Resurrection,
that's what we're
anyone?
right? That's
Yeah,
right. I'm just saying, fermented food
yes,
is resurrected,
it
right? Like
is.
it, we easily take food that is decaying or dying and we give it new life. So what if us eating, the bread and the wine is not about the object, but about the process that it took to make it? And
Ooh,
that's the
yeah.
frequency of Jesus that we're consuming.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I know we're getting close to time here, but I do wanna make sure I bring this up too, because you talk a lot about seasons and cycles.
Mm,
And Christianity has its own calendar too that
mhm.
unfortunately a lot of churches don't engage. My tradition never did. We had Christmas and Easter and that was it. And we're getting close to Easter here in a month or so. So I would love for you to give some thoughts on the wisdom that you see both from earth and also from Christian tradition in living more seasonally than we tend to in our culture.
Yes. So I am obsessed with festival food because festival is where our ancestors embedded specific knowledge that they didn't want us to forget
Mm,
because they knew we're going to do the festival, we're going to do the rite of passage, we're going to do the ritual, we're going to do the holiday, the holy day, the same
mhm,
year after year after year. So the foods that are embedded in festivals, holidays, holy days are direct transmissions from our ancestors. And often they're transmissions that tell us what to eat and when to eat and how to eat it. So, what I love about Easter is that embedded within it is actually sort of natural cycles of the animal calendars. So
mm,
we know that sort of Christianity during its like mid colonial period, it put its holidays on top of Roman sort of
yeah.
pagan rites of passage. But that's why Easter, it's like, what do bunnies, eggs, what does any of this have to do with the
Right.
resurrection? It's so confusing. Were there bunnies in the Middle East? Right? Why are we doing this weird stuff? Well, because bunnies are a part of the pattern language of spring,
Mm,
right? We're talking about renewal, lamb. We have lamb for Easter. I don't know
mm,
if everyone has lamb for Easter. I know that Jewish traditions, they also have the lamb during sort of spring
mhm,
holidays, but that reminds us of our pastoralism, right? The days when we ate in cycles with how the animals were moving and birthing and what they were needing, right?
uh,
And so lamb gets preserved as a part of Easter to preserve the memory of when the sheep or the ruminants are going to calf, right? When they're going to give have babies.
Yes.
Right? We have the Easter eggs during the spring because that's when the chickens start laying again. And
Mm,
it's very important to eat eggs during the springtime because during the springtime, the grass is rapidly growing. Therefore, it's super rich in some of the most important nutrients like vitamin K2, which helps to take the calcium in our blood and put it in our bones. It helps to dissolve calcification. And a lot of these super nutrients are only available when the animals are eating the rapidly growing green grass, right? So we want to be eating springtime eggs,
uh,
drinking springtime milk, right?
mm,
Because there's nutrients that exist then that don't exist during other times of the year, right?
mhm.
So our ancestors really preserved these important relationships with the earth into the holy day. Every holy day is holy. And what I love is that when you're not judging other cultures, then you get to understand the piece of the divine pattern that they have figured out. So, Nowruz is an Iranian holiday. And I learned
Okay.
so much about Nowruz because it's all about sprouting seeds. Like it's
Ooh,
like eating a
yeah.
lot of sprouted seeds and but that pattern that's not what it's all about. Excuse me, but that's a big theme. And so what that tells me, what that teaches me is that during the springtime, I actually sprout my grains, just like the Iranians, right? So I know I'm going to be eating eggs like the Ethiopians. I'm going to have my dorowat, okay, in the spring. I'm going to have my lamb in the spring. I'm going to have my
Mm,
sprouted grains, right, in the
mm.
spring. Bean sprouts, right, are coming from East Asian traditions. So basically each season actually has a way of being, eating, and behaving, and that is embedded in the holy days of that season. And different cultures' holy days are going to reflect different ecosystems. So a tropical holy day is going to be different than a temperate holy day, but temperate holy days around the world, it's all temperate. So it's going to be a similar pattern, you see?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to Easter. Okay.
Yeah.
Go do your Easter egg hunt. Replacing, don't be replacing eggs with chocolate. Eat the eggs. Do not forget the eggs. And yeah, so that's, we love Easter. We love the holidays, but the holidays are here to help us.
Mm,
So even if you want to stop celebrating a holiday for political reasons,
mm.
it's important to continue the patterns that the holidays is revealing, or you'll become cultureless and, a consumer, open to
Yeah,
consuming.
yeah, you so well expressed in there too, just how it's so easy to get caught up in all of that, and this gives us a chance to actually see, like, there's different ways to do this. There's different holidays that overlap, and it's not just one particular way, but, like, there's these holidays that make sense in this culture and these holidays that make sense in that culture, and it's really just so much about finding what fits and not about trying to get a round peg in a square hole just because you think you
Yeah.
have to. Uh,
Yeah. It's what's our fit. And we can also learn a lot from other people because our ancestors were interacting with each other. So, one example is Jamaica
hmm,
or agua de Jamaica. So, I'm in Colorado.
mhm.
There's taco trucks on every corner, and I love it.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
love Mexican cuisine and Mexican people. But one of the things you always find in Mexican restaurants is this red drink called agua de
Mhm.
Jamaica. And I grew up obsessed. I was like, I want that drink. I want that drink. It's my favorite. Come to find out, right? The flower that drink is based off of, hibiscus, is actually indigenous to where my ancestors are from in West Africa.
Oh, wow.
And it's called water de Jamaica Jamaica is actually spelled Jamaican. So it's water
Oh,
of the Jamaicans, and that's
oh,
because
uh,
Jamaican Africans who were taken to the Caribbean took this flower with them. And then those Caribbeans who went into Latin America and Central America took the flower. And so Central Americans honored that lineage by calling it the water of the Jamaicans,
oh,
right?
wow.
Because that's where it came from. But originally it was from West Africa. So Mexicans were holding one of the most sacred plants, right, to African American health. They were holding it so that one day a little Black girl would go into a Mexican restaurant and find her ancestral beverage, right?
That's incredible. I love that.
And this is what's available to all of us because all of
Mm,
our it seems to me that each culture is holding sacred information for the other cultures and that we were brought together to America, even though it wasn't under the best circumstances, but we
mm.
were brought together for a reason. And I think we were brought together to help each other to remember who we truly are.
Oh my gosh. I I wanna go down a whole rabbit trail of that with the religious side of everything we can learn from each other, but I know we're over time here, so I just wanna say, Asia, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation with us. I wanted to make sure we brought you into this series that we had here because I knew from just that little bit I heard you teach in Colorado that you could bring a whole other perspective that I could not personally. I knew there were things I could learn from you alongside our listeners, and I'm so excited to share that with them this Sunday. So
Mm.
I want to give you just a minute here to share how any listeners that might be interested can reach out to you, follow you, and I believe you even have a course starting up really soon here that they might be interested in.
Yeah, thank you so much, Colin. And it's been such a pleasure to be with you in your deeply intentional way of
Mm,
being and connecting all of these dots. It's really been a pleasure to be held by you in this
mm,
space. So I hold a space called Food Genius. And you don't have to be a college professor in order to understand how to eat to live. And so over a year, my partner, Justin Robinson, and he's a really amazing ethnobotanist. We help people to learn the plant food families while building the menu, right?
mm,
So that they always know what to eat and they always have food at home. So they ain't have to stop by so and so's Polly, whatever, none of that. So we're
yeah,
really helping people to know what to eat to live based off of your body, based off of your bioregion, and based off of your ancestral traditions. And we're doing that as a collective. We're
mm,
learning as a collective. We're growing as a collective. We are horizontal gene transferring, right? And yeah, and you would be able to work with me towards becoming a food genius, towards finally knowing what to eat in a way that's grounded in your own embodied wisdom. So that's coming
mm.
up. It's an ongoing experience. So when you join, you join, but you want to join as soon as possible. So you can start with everyone else. We have about 100 folks enrolled. So
Awesome.
yeah, so we're really having this movement of ancestral reclamation through food. And I hope that if you're delighted, if I can delight you, that I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah. You're still doing podcasts too, right?
Yeah,
Petty Herbalist?
so we have the Petty Herbalist Podcast.
Yeah, I listened to some this past month, yeah.
Yeah, and that's my podcast that I do with my best friend, Karina Desroses. What you should know about me is I believe in community and partnership. So all of my things are with my best friends, honestly.
Mm.
I design my life so that I be surrounded by loved ones. So
Oh,
listen
that's
to
how
the
we
Petty
do it.
Herbalist podcast if you want to be petty and F the system, F these food companies that don't love you, but also learn how to love food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Bones, Bugs, and Botany for anything else? It's got the socials and everything?
Yeah, Bones, Bugs, and Botany. Get on my mailing list, okay? There's so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
good.
I'll plug that too. I got on that as I was talking to Asia, and she sends some really awesome stuff on there. So it's definitely worth joining up for that.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you all so much for listening and just hearing a little bit of what I had to say. And if there's something that really, touched, moved, or inspired you, or if you got a word to share, then make sure to hit me up. I want to hear what landed. So yeah, I'm out here.
Ah, absolutely. Asia, thank you so much. We will make sure to link to all of that in the show notes. And for all of you listening, I hope you have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. We would love to hear from you, your thoughts on it. You can comment in the socials, reach out to Asia. We'll link her socials in there as well. And we're looking forward to seeing you next week as well as we join up with a new conversation with Ben Price as we'll be talking about beer and the feral spirit of God. So, really
Mm.
fascinating conversation upcoming. Looking forward to seeing you then.
You've been listening to the Bible Uncut and Unfiltered. We hope we provided a healing place to discuss the questions you can't ask and the context you won't learn in church. If you enjoyed the podcast, would you take a minute to share it with a friend? You could also rate and review on your podcast app. If you'd like to donate to keep our work going, you can go to our website, thebibleuncut.com, and click on the Support Us tab. While you're there, check out the recommended resources and blog where we post show notes and other articles. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.